Logan Paul. A lot of people nowadays probably know him for being one of the owners of Prime.
Drink company.
Or for being in the WWE.
You mad, bro? Rollins just... Oh my God!
While other people that have known Logan for a while probably remember him for other reasons.
Yeah.
Recently, Logan's been having to defend himself quite a bit for a plethora of different things that he may or may not have done. So I thought I'd look into it a little bit and go over all of the new accusations that Logan Paul has gathered against him. Okay, to start off, let's talk about Prime. I don't really drink this stuff, by the way. We just kind of have it. I put it like right here, like Logan would do. He always has the logo facing the camera. What if I do this? Think that would piss him off if he was to see that? I mean, a few weeks ago, there was this guy that goes by the name of Tommy the Lawyer on TikTok. Basically, he posted a series of videos claiming that the drink Prime contained 3 times the amount of PFOS and PFAS that you should consume in drinking water in your entire life.
Not only is there a lawsuit against Logan Paul's company Prime for there being PFOs, which are forever chemicals, in the Prime hydration drink, but according to the testing done by one of the lawyers for the plaintiff, guess how much PFOs were in the product, in the drink? 3 times the amount that you should have in your lifetime in PFOs from drinking water. In one Prime hydration drink, they found 3 times the amount of PFOs that you should consume in drinking water in your life.
And he also claimed that Prime had an active lawsuit against them for this. I looked into it a bit, and the lawsuit does seem like a real thing. The Milberg law firm filed a class action lawsuit against Prime back in August of 2023, suing for $5 million. The suit says independent third-party testing found PFAS chemicals in Prime Hydration's grape flavor. These TikToks this guy made might have actually been pretty damaging to the brand, because it got to the point where Logan made a public response to the guy, basically saying that everything he was saying was complete bullshit.
All right, let's talk about this. First off, anyone can sue anyone at any time. That does not make the lawsuit true, and in this case, it is not.
Prime, like it or not, is a pretty big name in drinks at this point. The stuff isn't being manufactured in Logan Paul's basement or just some tiny warehouse. They use the same manufacturers for the bottles that pretty much any other big name brand in drinks uses.
There's claims that PFOS or forever chemicals come from plastic. So in this case, they're not talking about the actual drink, the liquid Prime. They're talking about the bottle that Prime is manufactured in. This ain't a rinky-dink operation. We use the top bottle manufacturers in the United States. All of your favorite beverage brands, Coke, Pepsi, Tropicana, Dr. Pepper, they use these companies. If the product is served in plastic, they make a bottle for them. Accordingly, we follow Title 21 for the Code of Regulations for PET and all other types of bottles.
And seeing as these kind of chemicals are normally found in things like plastic, if Prime has these chemicals, it's probably safe to say that most of the other brands' bottles also have these issues. Logan then goes on to say that even if they're talking about the liquid part of Prime specifically, this dude's argument still falls apart. They claim that Prime has 0.06 parts per trillion of these forever chemicals. But apparently, according to the Environmental Protection Agency, you can't even measure that low of an amount, like not accurately anyway.
They're claiming that Prime has 0.06 ppt, parts per trillion. But that's interesting because the EPA says that anything under 1.1 ppt cannot be deemed as reasonably accurate, meaning they don't have the right tools or resources to even prove what they're claiming. Are you following this? It means the detection limit is 66 times more than what they're claiming we have in our drink.
The minimum detection limit is 66 times higher than the amount that they claim to have even found in Prime. So what these tests are claiming can't even be proven to be factually accurate. Logan then explains how they filtered the water twice before it even becomes Prime. I'll save you having to listen to all that, but if you want to watch it, you can just go watch his TikTok. This response from Logan seemed to put Tommy the TikTok lawyer in a panic. Tommy had posted 4 videos about the situation before Logan even had a chance to respond, but since Logan's response, all 4 of the videos seem to have just magically disappeared, and they were replaced by an apology video. You know, I'm just wondering if that decision had anything to do with what Logan said at the end of his video.
We'll accept an apology within the next 48 hours, otherwise you're going to be representing yourself in a miserable courtroom for lying about our brand.
You know, it might just be a coincidence though. Who knows? Like I said, I'm guessing Prime actually lost a pretty sizable chunk of their customers for Logan to actually make a response to this. If it didn't affect their bottom line at least a little bit, I don't think Logan would have taken much note of it. Logan hasn't just been in random feuds with TikTok lawyers recently though. He's also been having some issues with an old friend of his, Jenko. These guys go way back. They pretty much got their start together on Vine back when that was, you know, still a thing.
Hey, yo, what's up, girl?
I've never personally watched George, but I've definitely seen him in quite a bit of Logan's stuff over the years. Mainly Logan's podcast Impulsive, where he was a co-host for like over a year. I want to preface this by saying George genuinely seems like a really good guy. He's nice, well-spoken. He doesn't try to constantly put others down when he's talking to them. Quite the opposite of what you see from these two normally. It was always pretty apparent though that George was the third host of the show, if that makes sense. Logan and Mike seem to have always been the two like main leads of the podcast. One of the things I always noticed was that Logan and Mike seemed to really enjoy picking on George, you know, pretty much any chance they got, especially when they had a guest on the show. I mean, sometimes even the guest likes to pick on him, so maybe he's just a really easy guy to pick on. They did this podcast with Shaq in front of a live audience, by the way. They were on a stage, and during that interview, George was a bit quiet. I don't know if he was nervous or just didn't know what to say. I don't know. But he just was sitting there, not really adding anything to the conversation. So Shaq, being the absolute god that he is, decided to call George out for it.
But it is like father like son.
Hold on.
Yeah.
You ain't gonna ask me a question? Oh, damn.
He waits. He likes to wait until he's got the
Bro,
perfect
you
question.
tapped me in play mode and I broke my hand. What happens if I ask the wrong question and you punch me?
This pretty much forced George into feeling like he had to say something. And of all the things, this is what he came up with.
So I'm so sorry.
Now you gotta say something. Man.
Listen, man, I read the Bible a lot when they talk about David and Goliath. I've never seen a giant, and so like I'm literally just I'm a little taken.
You've been sitting over here for 30 minutes and that's all you can freaking say? Fucking kidding me.
Now he's not gonna say
That's the
shit.
question. Jeez.
Yeah. Shaq told Logan to fire George on the spot.
I'm like right next to him, but I can't hear anything in this, so I've been like
He's your
trying. And
partner
then
in
the
your
worst.
podcast?
Let's give George a round of applause. Real quick.
new
Get him
guy.
back. Get him
Hold on,
back in the game.
He's your partner?
He's the newest.
You might want to give him his 2-week notice. That's the question, dude.
Honestly,
Jeez.
no, it's not how it works in this shit. You don't even get a 2-week notice. You're fired, brother.
Even though Logan was joking here, it's actually a pretty interesting thing to hear him say when you consider what actually ended up happening. The Impulsive podcast would eventually have comedian Bobby Lee on the show. Absolute legend. This podcast episode is seemingly the beginning of the end of Logan and George's friendship. During the show, George begins to open up to the guys about one of the hardest times he's been through in his life. He had gained 40 pounds of weight. He had everything he could ever dream of in terms of, you know, money and possessions and everything, but he was still incredibly unhappy. And as touching as it all is, George talks for a solid minute and a half without any breaks in between. And this is what Bobby Lee had to say in response to all that.
So
It's like that's. You done? It was just a long monologue.
He was just waiting.
And let me just say something. I loved what you were saying. It was just very long. Yeah,
That's usually me. That's usually.
But you know, I got what you're saying, and you really inspired me, George.
Bobby also kept touching George on both his arm and his thigh. And after a while, George eventually gets up completely and storms off the show. Now, all of this stuff happened way back in 2022. Why would I possibly be talking about it now? Well, recently, George released an episode of his own podcast where he has a conversation with Mike Malak. Presumably, they've been at odds the same amount of time that George and Logan have. George invited Mike on the show to, you know, just discuss everything that happened and possibly mend the broken relationship. It doesn't take long for them to start talking about where everything went wrong, specifically the Bobby Lee event.
Yeah.
okay, the Bobby Lee situation.
This is where stuff starts getting pretty interesting. From what I can tell, a lot of the stuff that George and Bobby were saying to each other got cut completely just to protect Bobby's image.
Who was the first person that jumped off the couch and said, George just left, that was not good, we have to fix this situation?
Did they not cut shit that you should have stood up for me and said, hey, you can't cut that shit? That's gonna make him look like an idiot for leaving.
We have numerous times on the show, which I'm sure a number of shows do, cut things that we believe will protect the integrity or reputation of the guest.
That protected nobody but him.
No, of the guest. That's what I'm trying.
Well, what about the guy that you break bread with, bro?
I have no idea what George and Bobby actually said, obviously because the footage is gone, but whatever it may have been, George seems to believe that it would have made him look a whole lot better in the situation than he did. Because from our point of view, George walked off the show because a stand-up comedian took a jab at him, but there may be more to it than that. I absolutely love Bobby Lee, by the way. I'm not mad at him for any of this. I don't think there's many things that would make me have George's back on this, because, I mean, at this point, George is saying that Bobby me grabbing his knee was a form of sexual harassment.
He started the episode putting his balls in my face. I let that one go. Then every 2 seconds, he kept grabbing my dick.
I don't think.
How would you feel if a man that has his back completely towards you, that only turns around to grab your dick,
Right.
talk shit to your face, and you can't smack or beat the living brakes off of this guy? Because Logan makes me apologize to this man, or I don't have a job on Impulsive anymore.
They then proceed to just discuss their relationship in general, both business-wise and their friendship. George made quite a few claims during this segment of the show. He said he wasn't being paid to be on the show. In reality, he was actually paying $10,000 a month to be on Impulsive.
I was getting paid $5,000 a month, and that's covering just Reed. I have a mortgage. I have my sister that works for me. I have Belle. I'm trying to get married. I had all these things. I can show you my books. I was spending 10 G's a month being on the show.
Right.
He claimed that Logan and Mike shot 3 episodes of the podcast on his birthday so that he wouldn't show up.
And then on my birthday, you guys shot 3 episodes, so I couldn't show up.
George seemed to also be upset when he started his own show and felt like he was being pushed around by Logan still. What does being pushed around by Logan mean? Well, as you know, and we've discussed earlier in the video, Logan Paul is an owner of Prime. George was contacted by someone from a competing beverage company called Celsius, and he was offered to do a brand deal essentially on his own podcast. Well, Logan didn't like that very much, mainly because a lot of George's podcast viewers, unfortunately, are funneled in through the Impulsive podcast. So Logan would essentially just be giving free promotion to one of his biggest competitors. In George's words, Logan told him that if he was to take the Celsius deal, he would no longer be a part of Impulsive.
I got my show going, and then not only was I controlled and pushed around on Impulsive, but then Logan's making calls and directing my show. And I'm saying, hey man, you can't tell me what to do on my own show. That's not okay.
What's that about?
He told me that I couldn't take Celsius.
But Mike clarifies that Logan didn't say that George was gone for good, and if he wanted to rejoin after the deal was done, that he was more than welcome to.
And then I said, hey
He
man,
didn't tell you that you couldn't
I
take
have text
Celsius.
messages.
No, he didn't tell you that you couldn't take Celsius. He
says if I take Celsius, I'm not a part of Impulsive.
Then he told you that if you take Celsius, that you cannot continue to be on Impulsive, which is the core driver for Prime, as you're going to continue to funnel viewership from the Impulsive show back to your show, which promotes a competitive product.
Yeah.
He also told you that if you wait 6 months after the deal's done, you're more than welcome to rejoin the show if you need to make money.
But they're always trying to find a way to push me out.
But George just feels like they're always trying to get rid of him for some reason. And I hate to say it, man, but if he really feels that way, why didn't he leave sooner? In my head, the only driving factor must have been money. I mean, I guess that's kind of what everything always boils down to in the end. It's just how much money am I gonna make? Logan was apparently sending screenshots in the group chat of him making $11 million a week. But when asked by George to match the deal that Celsius was giving him, Logan's words apparently were, I won't pay you a dime, you're here because of me.
And I tell him, I go, Logan, I get it, bro. And I fully told him, I go, listen, man, like, I will take half the deal that Celsius gives me. Half. If you want to put it on the table for my show, a quarter, work with me. He says, I won't pay you a dime. You're here because of me. And then I said, well, what do you want me to do for my bills, bro? I got no money. And he says, go have your rich dad pay for it.
And to be completely honest, I can see Logan saying that. Like 100%. I know this video may sound like I'm on Logan's side here, because I kind of am. I just think this whole thing is really stupid. But I do not believe Logan Paul is a good human being. Not at all. George is 100% a better person than Logan. But just here, in this particular situation, I feel for George, but I'm more so leaning on Logan's side. And you may ask why that is, after everything we've heard from George. And my answer would be because Logan has already responded to everything that George has said. In his new TikTok fashion. This seems to be his new way of calling people out, just making short TikToks about them. Logan talks for about 4 minutes, 20 seconds, basically debunking everything that George claimed, apart from the stuff about Bobby Lee, which is pretty interesting. He didn't say that George was lying about stuff getting cut, but pretty much everything else he was able to prove wrong with receipts, so. To start, George wasn't spending $10,000 a month to be on the show. Quite the opposite, actually. He had his own business credit card, and all expenses related to the show completely paid for.
All right, let's talk about this. Obviously, I wasn't on the podcast to represent myself, so I'd like to clarify a few things that were said. As well as having his own credit card, all expenses related to the show were paid for, including all travel and lodging. Obviously, George's total reimbursement came out to $20,317. I'd love to see any books that show otherwise. Spending $120,000 a year to be on a show is a little confusing.
George actually bleeped what Mike had said in the podcast about how much money he actually made on Impulsive during his time there.
But you did make a sizable amount of money on the show.
And by the
What would
way,
you say, like,
always grateful. I was always grateful
like
for
that?
it. Yeah, I don't like to talk about money, but I was
sorry.
always grateful.
I think the total time was 15 months. But Logan just straight up leaked the numbers.
Always grateful. I was always grateful.
like
for
that?
it. Yeah, I don't like to talk about money.
I know he doesn't want to talk money. I know he believes it out, but George made $317,000 in the 15 months that he got paid for on Impulsive.
As you can see, George was making a lot more than what he was claiming. Maybe there was a couple slow months in there, but overall, $317,000 in like a year just from being on Impulsive, that's pretty fucking good. Logan actually did the math. George worked about 3 days a month, 3 hours a day on Impulsive, which equates to roughly $2,300 an hour.
The work requirements consisted of about 3 days a month, 3 hours each day, traveling the world, networking, and meeting some of the coolest people ever. It comes out to about $2,300 per hour, and he also had 10% equity of the entire show.
That's pretty fucking good, I'd say. Apparently George is telling everyone that he was fired, but in reality, he's the one that quit. I'm not really sure why George would make all of this up, knowing that something like this would happen, but here we are. I'm not really too sure what to believe at this point. George did reply, by the way. And I mean, this reply ain't it, man. It's pretty bad.
Dang. First of all, happy Mother's Day before I get into this drama, because I gotta go take my mom out. I'm having a splendid day today. Second, yo, your TikTok is cute, bro. It's cute. I get it. You're doing your best to show face. Do whatever you need, bro. Like, talk to your team. Do whatever you need. But when you want to be a man, come talk to me like a man. Let's sit down like men and talk about it. Mike did it. Mike's a real man. He had the chance to come, sit, talk, show all of his points of views, brother. You could bring camera. You could bring your attorney, bro. Come sit on the couch and talk to me like a man. Let's talk, bro. Because obviously you want to talk. Let's talk. Come talk to me, bro.
He seems like he either wants to fight Logan, which I feel like I know how that fight would end if it actually happened, so I don't think we need to test it. I feel like George knows how that fight would end as well. Or he wants Logan to come on his podcast and talk to him so that he can capitalize on all of those views. Because the one with Mike has like almost 2 million already. If he could get Logan on the show, that would be huge for his channel. Either way, I don't think I like any of these people anymore. Not that I had very strong feelings towards them before, but they're all annoying. This whole situation just feels weird. Logan said at the end of his TikTok that they hope that they can eventually patch things up and get their friendship back together.
There's a lot of things I would have done differently, but here we are. It saddens me that our story has unfolded this way. I wish him nothing but health, wealth, happiness, all the success that he wants, and I hope that one day we can sit down and have a relationship and a conversation.
But George seems especially petty about the whole situation, so. And I don't think Logan is wanting to apologize for anything anytime soon. So, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. They'll probably be friends again before the Mike Tyson fight, let's be honest. Anyway, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. Leave a like if you enjoyed, sub to the channel, and yeah, bye.